What's up, everyone? Welcome to the April 18th edition of FanDuel Tournament Plays presented by PrizePicks. I'm your host, Adam Scherer. You can follow me on Twitter at ShipMyMoneyDFS. And as a reminder, you get 1 free month of Awesemo plus Platinum when you sign up and make a deposit at PrizePicks. Be sure to use the code Awesemo to receive a 100% first deposit bonus up to $100. We have an 8-game MLB slate tonight. We've had a couple of games postponed, but still plenty of games to choose from. We're going to take a look at 3 of the top tournament stacks and 3 of the top tournament pitchers using the top stacks tool and top pitchers tool on Awesemo.com. As a quick reminder, keep in mind that most of the players and teams we talk about here, with some exceptions, but for the most part, not necessarily going to be core pieces that you want to just be jamming into every lineup and really heavily investing in, but some of the best low-owned contrarian pieces that you can get to help balance out some of your lineups. So to start with the top stacks, coming in at number 3, the Tampa Bay Rays, projected for an 8% chance of being the top scoring stack, 7% aggregate ownership. They're taking on Kyle Hendricks tonight. Pretty poor hitting weather for Tampa Bay tonight in Chicago. It's supposed to be extremely cold. So that's one thing working against them. Also, Kyle Hendricks is a decent pitcher, very reliant on being able to locate. He doesn't have a huge margin for error because his stuff isn't that good, excluding his changeup. But there is still plenty of power in the Tampa Bay lineup. If Hendricks is not on top of his game, you certainly can see them take advantage. Not only do they have a lot of power, there's also a lot of speed here. You get plenty of stolen base upside throughout the lineup from Tampa Bay as well. So that's another way that they can help you in tournaments, even if they're not hitting a ton of home runs in tonight's freezing cold weather in Chicago. Number 2, the Colorado Rockies in Coors Field taking on Aaron Nola. They're projected for 4% aggregate ownership with an 8% chance of being the top scoring stack. They only have a 4.9 implied run total, which is relatively high in the context of the entire slate, but not particularly high at all for a team in Coors Field. The reason is that we know Nola is a very good pitcher for Philadelphia, but there are a couple of things to like about the Rockies here. For one, they're low owned in Coors. That's always a spot that is going to be appealing in tournaments since this is the most favorable hitter's park in baseball. But for 2, Aaron Nola has struggled, or not struggled, but he's been worse outside of Philadelphia for years now. His numbers are pretty much always better at home and than they are on the road. And now he's going, into the most difficult park to pitch in baseball. He also hasn't been particularly sharp to start the season. So, not that it's ever a good matchup against Aaron Nola, but it's about as favorable of a situation as you're ever going to find Aaron Nola in if you're a hitter. So at low ownership, Colorado projected to be a bit underowned here. And number 1, the Houston Astros taking on Michael Lorenzen and the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. Houston's projected for 8% aggregate ownership with a 9% chance of being the top scoring stack. Houston's another team where it's not a great matchup against Lorenzen. He's a bit of a wild card. We don't know really what to expect from him. He spent a lot of time as a reliever in Cincinnati. He has good stuff, but we don't know for sure how it's going to play as a starter. He was very effective in his first start of the season, but it remains to be seen what that looks like going forward. But the Astros are a team that can make it difficult on pretty much anybody, much less a pitcher that is as unproven as a starter as Michael Lorenzen is. Tons and tons of upside for the Astros if Lorenzen is not on top of his game. They have a 4.6 implied run total tonight at home. Now, looking at the top 3 tournament pitchers on FanDuel, number 3, Tyler Mcgill, $9,000 price tag, taking on the San Francisco Giants in New York. The Giants only have a 3.2 implied run total, and McGill's just a pretty solid pitcher. He's projected for 5% ownership with a 7% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. He has a 26.5% strikeout percentage and a 3.71 xFIP since the start of last season. He's thrown 68 and 76 pitches in his first 2 starts this year, but one positive takeaway from his most recent start, even though he only threw 76 pitches, is that he went 5 1/3. So that tells me that they were willing to let him get 6 innings under his belt. I think he ran into trouble in the 6th, or they got to a matchup they didn't like. I'm not sure which it was, but the fact that he went back out there makes me think that it wasn't any sort of hard cap around 75 pitches. If he's pitching well, I don't see any reason why he wouldn't be able to get 6 innings tonight against the Giants. Number 2, Aaron Nola on the other side of that Rockies matchup, only projected for 2% ownership with an 8% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. Nola is $9,500. He's thrown 76 pitches in each of his first 2 starts, but he had a really difficult outing his last time out, only went 3 1/3 innings. So again, like we were just saying with Mcgill, I don't read into that as, Nola's only going to throw 75 to 80 pitches. If he's pitching well, I fully expect him to get up at least to around 90 pitches or so. He has a 29.8% strikeout percentage since the start of last season, 3.38 xFIP. As I mentioned when I was talking about the Rockies, he's not as good on the road typically as he is at home, but this is also a really bad Rockies lineup outside of a couple of hitters. The most dangerous hitters in this lineup are also right-handed, which is favorable for Nola. Specifically Chris Bryant and CJ Cron, both hitting from the right side. I expect Nola to do a pretty good job against this lineup more often than not. At number one, Clayton Kershaw, very expensive at $11,000, but he's only projected for 4% ownership with an 8% chance of being the top scoring pitcher. Kershaw is coming off of an absolutely dominant outing his last time out, where he was pulled after 7 innings with a perfect game at 80 pitches. That 80 pitch mark, I expect maybe he can go a little bit higher than that here. He does have a difficult matchup against the Braves, but they only have a 3.2 implied run total. And we know that a healthy Kershaw is very, very good. So the only real issue with Kershaw is that he is so expensive. There's plenty of good pitchers you can get to that are less expensive, but anytime you're getting Kershaw at sub 5% ownership in tournaments, he's going to be an appealing option. So to recap, the top 3 tournament stacks on FanDuel: number 3, the Tampa Bay Rays; number 2, the Colorado Rockies; number 1, the Houston Astros; and the top 3 tournament pitchers: number 3, Tyler Mcgill; number 2, Aaron Nola; and number 1, Clayton Kershaw.